Thank you, Jenny. I so appreciate your enthusiasm. That was just beautiful. I love it. So I'd like to read something to you from, it's actually a Dear Swami from Driving Your Own Karma. He'll be here in a couple of weeks, so just getting you ready. It says, Dear Swami, what is the quickest route to enlightenment? And you'll really appreciate this just after what Jenny read. He said, the quickest route to enlightenment used to be Route 66. Now it's a lot quicker to get on I-40, although I suggest a detour in Arizona so that you can get a sense of Yuma. However, if you're not driving, let me suggest a new training course that I've developed. It's called Okay, here we go. It's called Swami Beyondananda's Speed Suffering Course. He said it's the fastest route to enlightenment. Consider it a consolidation loan for all of your karmic debts. Cram eons worth of suffering into one miserable week. You will hate it, but when it's over, your dues are paid forever, and you can go to the beach. Oh, so just lightening things up here a little, friends, before we start. So this beautiful topic, this theme this month, one journey, many paths. We talk about one presence, one power, one mountain, many paths, one tree with many branches. And there is also one ultimate journey that is shared across the spiritual traditions. It is the journey from the illusion of separation to the embodiment of oneness. I didn't just say the thought of oneness, the embodiment of oneness. It's the journey from the head, which means talking about divine union, to actually experiencing it, experiencing oneness, experiencing divine union. That's the embodiment piece. What's also known as the mystical experience in all of the world's spiritual traditions. So this is the thing that we all hold in common. So it is one journey, many paths, but all the paths lead to that one place, oneness, consciousness, the experience of God. So the clean slate, the gift of the clean slate, that is really our topic this morning. So I was thinking about clean slate. Okay, what does that remind me of? Well, I don't know, for some of you, this may not register at all, but for me, it reminds me of the slate blackboard of my elementary days. And each student got a chance to clean the blackboards at the end of the day. And so I remember the way that we did it was we first took the eraser and we erased as much as we could, and then we were given this big huge sponge and a bucket. And so we took the sponge and we had it like in nice strokes. We would go down and work on the blackboard until it was nearly spotless. So a clean slate has a lot of meaning for me. And when we apply it to our lives, notice that there is some action there in the clean slate. So I want you to keep that in mind as we move through this message today. So clean slate, kind of the symbol of a fresh start in our lives. Can you recall, though, sometimes clean slates come in an unexpected way. So can you recall moments in your life when a clean slate came uninvited? And here are some examples, some things that cleaned our slate, kind of maybe not internally, but in our external world. A divorce, a loss of a loved one, the ending of a friendship, the loss of a livelihood, and I'm sure you could add others to that as well. Uninvited, the cleaning of a slate in our lives, but uninvited. And then there are other times when we prayed for a clean slate, right? Prayed for a new career, prayed for a healthy relationship, prayed for a family, maybe some children or whatever. Prayed for any type of newness, maybe perfect health. And then in some cases, when it arrived, and I'm thinking particularly with parenthood and a new job and things like that, when it arrived, we feel a combination, the unknown. We have the unknown before us. There's a feeling of exhilaration and maybe combined with a little bit of fear and terror, maybe a lot of fear and terror, that fear of the unknown. So a clean slate, in all cases, offers us an opportunity. It offers us an opportunity to practice what it is that we have been learning about all these years through our spiritual teachings and our spiritual practices. I want to remind you of a principle, and it's basically goes like this, that we are not bound by precedent. We are not bound by what came before in our lives, because we are creative beings. We are of the Most High God. We are pure spirit operating in a field of pure potentiality and possibility. So each moment then is an opportunity to practice spiritual principle. We call it the creative process. We use a form of prayer called spiritual mind treatment that engages the creative process on a very high frequency, because it starts off with reminding ourselves that God is all there is, and that we are unified with God, that we are the life of God, that our words are the very creative nature of God. And so we use the creative process, then we use spiritual principle to bring new possibilities into manifestation in our lives. The clean slate concept reminds us that in each and every moment we can use that process to create something new. And in order to create the something new, we must get out the eraser and get out the sponge and do the cleaning, the cleaning, the inner cleaning of our own consciousness in order to be a vibrational match to it. So whenever we have a new vision, we know this, those of us who've done the visioning process for quite a long time, we catch a higher vision for our lives. And then there's these questions after you catch the vision, these questions that have to do with cleaning the slate. What must I release? And what must I become? Right? Those are particularly the what must I release? That's the cleaning of the slate to make room for what I must become. So that means erasing untruth, erasing anything that is unlike behaviors, thoughts, beliefs, anything that is standing in the way of the shining reality of our spiritual truth, our unlimited being, and our presence as the divine here on the planet. So it's all about becoming a vibrational match or a vehicle for the vision through this process of letting go. Remember, enlightenment is a destructive process, is what he said. It's about cleaning and clearing and sponging away, erasing away that in our subconscious mind that does not serve us. During the days of the civil rights movement, in his I Have a Dream speech, Martin Luther King cast an amazing vision. He called it the beloved community. And I invite you during this time to, when you get a chance, you can find it online, just listen to that whole speech. It's very inspiring. Basically, he's saying that his vision is that all people walk hand in hand and live together in mutual respect, harmony, and prosperity for all. It's so similar to our own vision that we're here to be the presence of love, co-creating heaven on earth, a world that works for all. That's in essence the beloved community. And so he and his followers set about, he didn't just talk about it, they set about to do something about it. And I know there was a lot of prayer and forgiveness that his followers did as a practice, but they also went into action. And I learned something recently. I'm actually taking an online course called Lead Like Martin this month through another organization. And I learned that Howard Thurman, many of us know who Howard Thurman is, the great Black theologian. He was Martin Luther King's, one of his professors when he was working on his doctorate at Boston University. And it was Thurman who introduced Martin to the work of Gandhi and nonviolent protest as a way to create radical social and political change. That's some really cool information. So anyway, the erasing of things like racism and the systemic effects of it in our society, and the replacement with the truth of oneness was something that he set out to do through nonviolent protest and through his very powerful talks, his sermons and his messages to the public. So vision calls us to become something different than what we were before. It calls us to let go of a lot of baggage of beliefs that are all related to some sort of an idea of separation. And so there were some changes, there was some progress, and yet we know here we are 50 years later, and we still have some major issues to deal with in this same area of civil rights. 50 years later, and still the beloved community has not been fully realized. So then you may ask, well, what can I do about it? I'm one person, right? I'm one person. And yet this is what I know to be true. I'm reminded of Dr. David Hawkins' work, that people vibrating at a higher frequency, the power of one person vibrating at love, peace, joy, these higher frequencies, counterbalance thousands, in case hundreds of thousands of people who are vibrating in lower frequencies. And because we have things like the internet, truth can spread. And because we're all interconnected, that message is being transmitted on a different level than our conscious level as well. So our work does matter. It does matter. And it is making a difference. I know it's making a difference. So you ask, so what is it that I do? What is this work? It is the work of remembering who you are, remembering the nature of God, remembering who you are, and going about the work of releasing everything that gets in the way of that expression. So we can make a difference. We can begin by cleaning the slate of our own minds. And it starts with knowing who we are in truth. And Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. knew this. And so I was able to hear this yesterday, this very short clip out of one of his sermons where he talks to his followers about the divine blueprint. Yes, the divine blueprint. He said, you are a divine blueprint, or you have a divine blueprint. He said, you must believe in your own dignity. You must believe in your own worth. You must believe in your own somebodyness. You are somebody. Always feel that you count and that your life has ultimate significance. Can you feel the resonance feel yourself in resonance with this beautiful truth? We do have an ultimate significance in the big scheme of things. Our spiritual work does make a powerful difference. So having a vision of who we are in truth demands that we erase all ideas of who we are not. So that means practicing erasing thoughts like, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I don't count. We have to erase all of that immediately. And one of the practices, actually there are a couple practices, that whenever a thought like that arises, to say delete. That's kind of another, that's a modern form of erase. You can say erase, but delete. And also, I've been reading a book by Michelle Obama, and I love this mantra that she has. She says whenever she's faced with a really big challenge, or something that she wants to accomplish, she says, "Can I do this? Yes, I can." So repeat that with me. Can I do this? Yes, I can. So that's the attitude I would like you to have with the inner work, with your spiritual practice, and getting yourself into those frequencies of love and above, love, peace, joy, and hanging out there. It doesn't mean we don't do the inner work. This is not about spiritual bypass, but this is about doing the cleansing, the erasing, the cleaning of the slate of the mind work that allows us to vibrate at those frequencies on a regular basis. So knowing the truth of who we are instills hope and confidence in us. Knowing who we are instills hope and confidence in us. Knowing that we can overcome our current condition individually and collectively, and create whatever is the new that is in our vision. And in the case of Martin Luther King, becoming the beloved community. So we don't ignore the condition. I just want to go back to that. We, in our spiritual teaching, when we have in our classes, we talked about confronting, facing the condition in our lives that we don't like, just like Martin Luther King and his followers and people today, and all of us who are involved in what's going on currently. We face the conditions that aren't going so well, but we use that like a prayer request to help us mold our prayers to clean the slate of all the beliefs that create that condition. I'd like to share with you a beautiful story from one of my colleagues. This is a true story. This is something that she sent to all of us, and I just thought this was so powerful. I wanted to share it with you. Her name is Reverend Cindy, and she was about to go on silent retreat when she tested positive for COVID-19. And she found herself instead thrust upon a 15-day COVID retreat, is what she called it, a forced retreat at home, dealing with pain and fever and fatigue. At first, Cindy thought that she would be able to catch up on her reading and on her podcasts and all of those things that had constantly been pushed to the side. However, she found out that she didn't have the energy nor the mental focus to be able to do any of that. So she began to do what she knew that she could do in that moment, which was to do long, slow, deep breathing, particularly when she noticed that thoughts came up that created a lot of fear and anxiety for her. She had thoughts like, could I have unknown risk factors that could make COVID more deadly for me? Will I end up hospitalized or even die from this? She breathed and she practiced feeling her feelings. She didn't try to run away from them, do spiritual bypass, felt her feelings, and she emerged, those feelings that, continued to emerge from her long periods of silence, 15 days pretty much of silence. So Cindy at some point decided to face her fever, which was really wreaking havoc with her, fear, just creating a lot of fear. So she decided to meditate and breathe on the fever. And she could feel the heat beginning to build and radiating out from her, and pretty soon her entire body was just soaked. And then she said, in an instant, the heat stopped radiating. She stopped sweating, and the aches left her joints and muscles instantaneously from that process of meditation and breathing. Cindy recalls feeling so much gratefulness for the love, the support, and the prayers of her family, friends, and her spiritual community. And she was grateful for some other miraculous, unexpected blessings. So you heard those. Those are pretty miraculous already. But she said it was if COVID hit the reset button on every aspect of her life. Arthritis pain that had been bothering her for quite some time, and a skin condition that she'd had for years disappeared. Yes, disappeared. You heard me right. Disappeared. And as the fear and the anxiety and the feelings of stress and overwhelm also dissolved. Her priorities became crystal clear, and the next steps that she wanted to take in her life emerged. She became very clear-minded. And though it was an unwanted and unwelcome experience, Cindy used spiritual principle, what she knew, what she had practiced all along. She used spiritual principle in this COVID experience to turn it into an opportunity for healing, to create a clean slate in consciousness that blessed her mind, her body, and her entire life. That's a pretty remarkable story and shows so clearly the power of the clean slate approach of our spiritual practice. The Centers for Spiritual Living vision statement, now this is the greater organization, one of the statements there says, we envision humanity awakening to its spiritual magnificence and discovering the creative power of thought. And thought is any way that we direct our attention, right? When she was meditating, she was using the creative power of her thought by focusing on the present moment. When she was breathing, she was using the power of thought to tell herself to breathe. To awaken to that spiritual magnificence, we begin by cultivating what's called the spiritual practice of self-awareness and self-reflection. Those of you who've taken our new spiritual principles and practices class will recognize those. Self-awareness, we know, is the foundation of conscious choice. It is the choice to do the cleaning of the slate that is necessary for our minds to become a beautiful, fertile field for new possibilities. So it's the habit of examining our beliefs, examining our behaviors, and determining whether they serve us or not, and then going about decluttering our minds, dismantling our minds, erasing our minds, and sponging away that doesn't serve. So some good questions to ask yourself are, when you have a thought that's creating any type of stress, is that true? This is a Byron Katie method. Is it true? How do I live when I believe this thought? Who would I be without this thought? So as detrimental beliefs are cleaned, we therefore create more clarity and space for new possibilities. And just a little bit of a warning. We call this chemicalization as well, when we start cleaning the slate. The birth of anything new is generally preceded by pain and messiness. And think of what it takes to clean out a really cluttered up closet, right? You have to take everything out first, which is a big, huge mess on the floor. And then you start putting things back in order, and you get rid of the stuff that doesn't need to be there. So it's a beautiful analogy just to remember that there are times during that process of destruction and disorder, pulling things out that don't belong and getting ready to put things in order, that things can temporarily look worse before they get better. And that's usually related to emotions, but also can be things in our lives. Emotions that emerge as the clean slate is being cleaned, we know can be difficult to manage. And yet, if we remember to observe, feel your feelings fully, bring your breath to that area, and then notice the beliefs that are behind those emotions so that you can begin to change them, delete them, and replace them with truth. What I'm going to offer for you in conclusion is a beautiful cleansing and clearing process from the Hawaiian tradition, Ho'oponopono. We've talked about this one before. It's a forgiveness process, and by the way, if you have not seen the Netflix movie Finding Ohana, it is so beautifully displayed and used, this Ho'oponopono, during it, because it takes place in Hawaii with a Hawaiian family. It is the perfect soul cleansing practice. And it's just 4 simple sentences. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. And so the practice is, at the end of the day, you scan your mind for thoughts, interactions in the day that disrupted your peace. And then you start practicing those 4 sentences for each situation. And then, as Emerson said, finish the day and be done with it. Tomorrow is a new day. And so let's say together, yes, and so it is. Lovely, thank you. So I'm now passing this back to Sharon.